In a cozy little cottage, nestled at the edge of rolling green hills, lived a young man named Jack. Jack wasn't just any young man. He was as diligent as a busy bee, and as kind-hearted as a sunbeam. His hair was the color of warm honey, often falling into his bright, curious eyes, which sparkled with a gentle spirit. He wore simple, patched clothes, always a little dusty from his tireless work, but he carried himself with an honest grace. Jack worked for Mr. Grabbit, a man whose name perfectly matched his personality. Mr. Grabbit was a plump, scowling fellow with tiny beady eyes that constantly darted about, always looking for something to grab for himself. He owned a sprawling farm, but his heart was as shriveled as a forgotten prune. For 3 long years, Jack toiled from dawn till dusk. He fed the chickens, milked the cows, hoed the fields, and mended fences, all with a cheerful hum. Yet, for all his hard work, Mr. Grabbit refused to pay him a single penny. "Work is its own reward, Jack," Mr. Grabbit would bellow, his voice like a rusty gate creaking open. "Besides, you get a roof over your head and a bowl of gruel. What more could a young lad want?" Jack, ever patient, simply nodded, though a tiny sigh would escape his lips when Mr. Grabbit wasn't looking. He dreamed of seeing the world beyond the farm, of having a little coin in his pocket to call his own. One crisp autumn morning, after Jack had shorn all the sheep and stacked all the hay, Mr. Grabbit surprised him. "Here, boy," he grumbled, thrusting 3 shiny pennies into Jack's calloused hand. 3 years of service, 3 pennies, a penny a year, a fair wage for a simpleton like you. Jack's heart did a little flutter kick. 3 pennies. It wasn't much, but it was something. He thanked Mr. Grabbit politely, though a part of him felt a sting of unfairness. Still, he decided not to let Mr. Grabbit's meanness spoil his day. With his 3 precious pennies jingling in his pocket, Jack decided to take a walk, something he rarely had time for. He ventured beyond the farm, past the familiar fields, and towards the edge of the thorny thicket, a dense bush, where the trees grew tall and whispered secrets to the wind. As Jack strolled, marveling at the vibrant autumn leaves, he heard a tiny tinkling voice. Oh dear, my coins, my lovely shiny coins." Peeking through a tangle of blackberry bushes, Jack saw the most extraordinary sight. A creature no bigger than his thumb, with shimmering dragonfly wings and a cap made of a tiny acorn, was hopping frantically. It was the forest sprite. The little sprite had dropped its tiny pouch, and 3 equally tiny golden coins had rolled into a deep crack in a tree root, just out of its reach. The forest sprite looked up, its eyes like dewdrops, and saw Jack. "Kind sir, could you possibly help a poor sprite retrieve my treasures? I've lost my coins." Jack, always ready to help, knelt down. With his strong fingers, he carefully pried open the crack, just enough for the forest sprite to retrieve its coins. The sprite beamed, its face alight with gratitude. "Oh, thank you, kind human. You have saved my day, and you did it without a thought for yourself." The forest sprite then noticed the 3 pennies in Jack's hand. "Wait, you have coins too. Will you trade them with me? For your kindness, I shall grant you 3 wishes, 1 for each coin." Jack's jaw dropped. 3 wishes? For 3 pennies? He looked at his meager earnings, then at the sparkling, hopeful eyes of the forest sprite. Without a moment's hesitation, he offered his pennies. "Of course," he said, a wide smile spreading across his face. "I'd be honored." The forest sprite clapped its tiny hands with delight. "Excellent! Now for your wishes. What shall they be?" Jack thought for a moment, his mind buzzing with possibilities. "First," he declared, "I wish for a magic blowgun that never misses its target." Poof! A slender wooden blowgun, intricately carved with swirling vines, appeared in his hand. Second, Jack continued, I wish for a magic violin that, when played, makes everyone who hears it dance uncontrollably. Poof! A beautiful miniature violin, polished to a gleam, materialized. And finally, Jack said, feeling a surge of confidence, I wish that no one can ever refuse my requests. Poof! A warm, tingling sensation spread through him, making him feel strong and sure. The forest sprite winked. Your wishes are granted, Jack. Use them wisely. And with a final shimmer, the forest sprite vanished, leaving Jack alone in the thorny thicket, clutching his new magical treasures. His heart pounding with the promise of adventure, he looked at the blowgun, then at the violin, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. What would he do first with such amazing powers? Jack, still buzzing with the magic of his wishes, felt the smooth wood of his new blowgun and the delicate strings of his tiny violin. The thorny thicket, which had felt a little wild and mysterious before, now seemed like a magical starting point for grand adventures. He felt a joyful fizz in his fingertips, the amazing power that meant no one could refuse his requests. He decided it was time to leave the whispering trees and head towards the bustling market town, where he hoped to find a fair trade for his newfound fortune, and perhaps a delicious treat. As he walked along the winding path, a curious sight caught his eye. Under the shade of a grand old oak tree sat a round whiskered man with eyes that darted about like nervous sparrows. This was Mr. Sly, a merchant known throughout Market Town for his very clever and sometimes not so kind dealings. He was carefully counting a large jingling bag of gold coins, his face a picture of greedy delight. Jack remembered how unfairly Mr. Grabbit had treated him, and a mischievous spark lit up in his heart. Perhaps his new gifts could help him right a few wrongs, starting with a little bit of playful trickery. Good day to you, sir, Jack called out, approaching Mr. Sly with his most innocent smile. Mr. Sly quickly tucked his gold bag under his coat, his eyes narrowing like slits. And what might you want, young man? I'm a very busy merchant, with no time for chit-chat or loitering. Jack's smile didn't falter. Oh, I'm not loitering, sir. I'm merely admiring this magnificent oak, but I couldn't help but notice your rather grand bag. It looks quite heavy. Mr. Sly puffed out his chest, a self-satisfied smirk playing on his lips. Indeed it is. The fruits of honest labor, my boy. Unlike some who wander about with empty pockets. He eyed Jack's simple, well-worn clothes with a sniff. Perhaps, Jack mused, tilting his head. But I've heard fascinating tales of magical bags that grow heavier with every coin they hold, and strangely lighter if they're given away. I wonder if yours might be such a bag, Mr. Sly scoffed, a loud dismissive sound. Nonsense and poppycock. Gold is gold, and a bag is a bag. There's no magic in it, boy, only the magic of hard work, he added, though his eyes held a flicker of curiosity. Are you quite sure? Jack asked, a playful glint in his eye. I happen to have a special talent for identifying magical items. Perhaps, if I held it for just a moment, I could tell you if it's truly ordinary, or if it has a secret life of its own. Mr. Sly hesitated. He was a greedy man, but also a terribly curious one. The thought of a magical bag, perhaps one that could multiply his wealth, was too tempting to ignore. And besides, what harm could a scruffy boy do? Very well, he grumbled, reluctantly pulling out the heavy bag. But only for a moment, and don't you dare try any of your silly tricks, mind. As soon as Mr. Sly handed over the jingling bag, Jack felt a familiar tingle, the wonderful fizz of his third wish activating. Yes, Jack declared, pretending to concentrate very hard. his brow furrowed. "This bag is indeed magical, but it seems to be quite stubborn. It wants to stay with me, and it insists that you won't refuse its request." Mr. Sly's eyes widened, first in surprise, then in alarm. "What utter poppycock! Give me back my gold, you tricky scoundrel!" He lunged forward, but found himself strangely unable to grab the bag. His hands seemed to flutter uselessly in the air, as if an invisible wall stood between him and his precious gold. He tried to shout, to demand, but the words caught in his throat. His mind screamed for the gold, yet his body refused to obey. He couldn't refuse Jack's implied request to keep the bag. Jack, with a triumphant grin, tucked the heavy bag securely into his own worn satchel. "Thank you kindly, Mr. Sly. This magical bag and I will be off now." And with a polite nod, he turned and walked away, leaving a bewildered and absolutely furious Mr. Sly, sputtering helplessly in the dust. Mr. Sly, finally freed from the strange, invisible spell once Jack was a good distance away, found his voice at last. "Thief! Robber! Stop him!" he shrieked, scrambling to his feet, his face turning a furious shade of purple. He ran after Jack, waving his arms wildly and shouting at the top of his lungs, "He's stolen my life savings! He's a rogue and a scoundrel!" Jack, hearing the terrible commotion, quickened his pace. But Mr. Sly's piercing cries had already drawn the attention of the market town guards. Soon, 2 burly guards in their blue tunics were hot on his heels. Jack, still new to his astonishing powers, hadn't quite anticipated such a swift and public outcry. He was cornered quickly. "Halt, young man!" one guard commanded, grabbing Jack's arm with a firm grip. "Mr. Sly here accuses you of theft." Jack tried to explain about the magic bag and the wishes, but Mr. Sly was a well-known merchant, and Jack was just a scruffy boy with a suspiciously heavy bag of gold. Before he knew it, he was being dragged through the bustling streets of Market Town, past curious stares and wagging tongues, all the way to the imposing courthouse. Inside, Judge Stern, a stern-faced man with a booming voice and spectacles perched firmly on his nose, sat upon a high grand bench. "Order! Order in the court!" he bellowed, his voice echoing through the chamber. Mr. Sly, still red-faced and panting, dramatically recounted his tale, making every detail sound much worse than it was, painting Jack as a cunning, heartless thief who had tricked him out of every penny. Jack, though he tried his best to explain thems magic of the bag and the wishes from the forest sprite, found his words falling on deaf ears. Judge Stern listened impassively, his brow furrowed, then glared down at Jack with a severe frown. "Young man, you are accused of grand theft. Do you have any witnesses? Any proof of your outlandish claims?" Jack shook his head sadly. He had only the forest sprite, who was nowhere to be seen in this grim courthouse. Judge Stern slammed his gavel with a loud crack. "Case closed. Given the clear testimony of Mr. Sly and the complete lack of any credible defense, I find you guilty as charged. Your punishment shall be to hang by the neck until dead. Take him to Gallows Hill at dawn." Jack's heart sank like a stone. From the sheer joy of new magic to a death sentence in a single, bewildering day, he was led away, the heavy weight of the gold bag now feeling like a terrible burden. And the magic violin and blowgun, though still hidden in his possession, seemed terribly useless against such a grim, final fate. He was locked in a cold, dark cell, the heavy iron door clanging shut with a final thud, left to ponder his impending doom as the first faint rays of dawn began to paint the sky outside his tiny barred window. The cold stone walls of his cell pressed in on Jack, mirroring the despair in his heart. Dawn, a cruel pale sliver of light, began to peek through the tiny barred window, painting the grim reality of Gallows Hill. He was innocent, yet here he was, condemned. His magic blowgun, still tucked into his belt, felt like a heavy, useless weight. The magic violin, also hidden, seemed equally powerless against the iron bars and the unyielding decree of Judge Stern. "What good is magic?" he whispered to the silent stones, "if it can't save me from this?" A sudden tiny spark flickered in the darkness of his mind. The forest sprite's words echoed. "No one can refuse your requests." And the violin, it made everyone dance. A wild, desperate hope ignited within him. Perhaps his magic wasn't useless after all. It wasn't about escaping the cell, but about changing the tune of his fate. The heavy clanging of keys and the creak of the cell door shattered the quiet. Two burly market town guards, their faces grim, entered. "Time, Jack," one grunted, his voice devoid of pity. Jack stood, a newfound resolve hardening his features, though his heart still thrummed with fear. They led him through the winding, cobbled streets of Market Town, the air growing colder with each step. The sun was fully up now, casting long, accusing shadows. A small crowd had already gathered, their hushed whispers and solemn faces a stark reminder of his impending doom. As they approached Gallows Hill, the somber silhouette of the gallows loomed against the pale morning sky. A chill that had nothing to do with the air ran down Jack's spine. Judge Stern, robed in his severe black, stood waiting beside the platform, his expression as unyielding as granite. Nearby, Mr. Sly, his hands clasped smugly in front of him, watched with a triumphant smirk, his eyes glinting with malicious satisfaction. The executioner, a hulking figure with a dark hood, stood ready, his axe glinting ominously. Jack was led to the base of the gallows. The crowd pressed in, a sea of silent, curious faces. Judge Stern cleared his throat, his voice booming across the somber hill. "Jack," he began, "you have been found guilty of grand theft. Do you have any last words?" Jack looked at the judge, then at Mr. Sly's sneering face. "Yes, Your Honor," he said, his voice clearer and stronger than he expected. "I have but one last request. Before I meet my fate, may I play a tune on my violin? It is a family heirloom, and its music brings me comfort." A ripple went through the crowd. Judge Stern frowned, considering. A violin? At such a solemn moment? Mr. Sly scoffed loudly. "He's just trying to delay the inevitable, Your Honor. Don't listen to his tricks." But Jack fixed his gaze on Judge Stern, channeling all his will, all his, "No one can refuse power. Please, Your Honor, just one song." Judge Stern, despite himself, felt an inexplicable urge to agree. A strange compulsion seized him. He sighed. "Very well," he conceded, much to Mr. Sly's visible annoyance. "But make it quick." Jack pulled out his magic violin, its polished wood gleaming in the morning light. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes for a moment, and then drew the bow across the strings. The first note was a soft, lilting melody, sweet and innocent. But as Jack continued to play, the tune grew livelier, imbued with an irresistible magic. Suddenly, a foot began to tap, then another. Judge Stern, who had been standing stiffly, found his feet twitching. Mr. Sly's shoulders began to jiggle. Soon the entire crowd, the guards, the executioner, and even Judge Stern himself were moving. Their feet shuffled, their bodies swayed, then they began to twirl and leap. The music was so powerful, so utterly enchanting, that no one could resist. Judge Stern, his black robes flying, found himself executing a surprisingly nimble jig. Mr. Sly, his face a mask of bewildered horror, was forced into a frenzied polka, his arms flailing wildly. The executioner, axe still in hand, spun in a dizzying waltz, nearly tripping over his own feet. "Stop this madness!" Judge Stern huffed, trying to command his legs to cease their involuntary dance, but the music pulled him faster. "Higher! I order you to stop!" But his words were lost in a gasp as he was forced into an unexpected pirouette. The crowd erupted in laughter and cheers, a stark contrast to the somber mood just moments before. They danced with abandon, some laughing, some bewildered, all utterly powerless against Jack's magical tune. The solemn Gallows Hill had transformed into a chaotic, joyous, and utterly absurd dance floor. Jack kept playing, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. He watched Judge Stern stumble and Mr. Sly practically bounce off the platform. Completely humiliated, the executioner was now doing a rather impressive, if unintentional, breakdance. After what felt like an eternity, Jack finally lowered his violin, the music fading, leaving a stunned silence. Everyone stood panting, disheveled, and utterly exhausted. Judge Stern, red-faced and breathless, glared at Jack. What was that, young man?" he wheezed, trying to regain his composure. "That, Your Honor," Jack replied, "was the truth, and it seems my music has quite the way of making people move." He then looked directly into Judge Stern's eyes, his own filled with a quiet power, and spoke with calm authority, using the forest sprite's gift. "Your Honor, I believe it's time we reconsider my sentence. Perhaps we can find a different kind of justice." Judge Stern, still reeling from the magical dance and the strange compulsion he felt to obey Jack, looked around at the disarray, at the exhausted, bewildered faces of the guards and Mr. Sly. The sheer absurdity of the situation, coupled with Jack's unshakable gaze, left him no choice. He knew, deep down, that he could not refuse. What do you propose?" he stammered, his usual sternness completely gone. Jack smiled. "I propose we get to the real bottom of things, Your Honor, and I have a feeling Mr. Sly here might have a few more steps left in him." The crowd watched, breathless, as Jack turned his attention to the still, gasping, terrified Mr. Sly, a new plan already forming in his mind. The last note of Jack's magic violin faded, leaving an eerie silence on Gallows Hill. The chaotic dancing ceased instantly. Judge Stern, a crimson flush still staining his face, stumbled and nearly fell, catching himself on a guard's shoulder. Mr. Sly collapsed to his knees, panting like a winded badger, his eyes wide with terror and humiliation. The guards, their uniforms askew, and the executioner, his axe now lying forgotten on the ground, all stood frozen, gasping for breath, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and utter bewilderment. The solemn execution site had been transformed into a bizarre, unforgettable spectacle. Jack, however, stood tall and calm, his magic violin held lightly in his hand. He surveyed the disheveled scene, his gaze finally settling on Judge Stern. "Your Honor," he said, his voice clear and steady, cutting through the heavy silence. "You promised to reconsider my case, and now I believe it is time for the truth to finally dance into the light." Judge Stern, still reeling from the magical jig, could only nod weakly. He was utterly drained, his dignity shattered. But as his eyes met Jack's, he felt an undeniable pull, a strange compulsion that made him listen, truly listen, for the first time. Jack then turned his piercing gaze to Mr. Sly. The tricky merchant flinched, trying to shrink away, but he was rooted to the spot. "And Mr. Sly," Jack continued, his voice taking on a gentle yet firm quality, I believe you have a very important story to share with everyone here, don't you? A story about that bag of gold, perhaps." Mr. Sly's eyes darted wildly. He tried to shake his head, to deny, to conjure another lie, but he couldn't. Jack's "no one can refuse power" was absolute. A choked sound escaped Mr. Sly's throat, and then, to the astonishment of everyone present, the words tumbled out, fast and frantic, as if an unseen force was pushing them. It wasn't his. It was mine. I found it first. No, that's not right. I took it. From that old woman. The one by the bakery. He tried to give it back, but I didn't want him to. I wanted it all. So I lied. I lied to everyone. He's innocent." A collective gasp rippled through the small crowd. Judge Stern's eyes widened in horror and disbelief. He looked from the trembling, confessing Mr. Sly to the calm, resolute Jack. The weight of his terrible mistake crashed down on him. He had almost sent an innocent boy to his death, all because of a greedy man's lies. "Silence!" Judge Stern roared, finding his voice again, though it trembled with shame. "Guards! Arrest Mr. Sly! He has confessed to theft and false accusation. Jack," he continued, his voice softening, filled with profound regret. "You are free, completely innocent. I apologize for this grave injustice." Cheers erupted from the onlookers, who had witnessed the extraordinary events. The guards, no longer dancing, quickly seized Mr. Sly, who, now free from Jack's magic, began to wail and protest. Though no one listened, the executioner, looking utterly bewildered, slowly picked up his axe, his job thankfully undone. Jack smiled, a genuine joyful smile. He was free. He had cleared his name, exposed the truth, and brought justice to a greedy villain. With his magic violin and blowgun safely tucked away, he walked away from Gallows Hill, no longer a condemned man, but a hero. The path ahead was wide open, full of possibilities and new adventures. For a boy who now wielded magic, and a heart full of kindness. The cheers of the crowd, now free from the magic violin's spell, followed Jack as he walked away from Gallows Hill. The sun, which had seemed so harsh moments ago, now bathed him in a warm golden light. Behind him, Judge Stern, still a little wobbly, was directing the guards to secure Mr. Sly, who was blustering and complaining, but utterly helpless. The executioner, looking rather sheepish, carefully put away his axe. Jack didn't look back. His heart felt lighter than it ever had, soaring with the freedom of a bird finally released from its cage. He was innocent, his name cleared, and his magical gifts were still his. He walked through Market Town, the bustling streets, a stark contrast to the grim gallows. People pointed, whispered, and some even cheered, having heard the incredible tale of the dancing judge and the truthful confession. Jack, however, felt a quiet calm. He found a peaceful bench under a blossoming cherry tree and sat down, carefully placing his magic blowgun and violin beside him. He pulled out the small bag of gold, no longer a symbol of false accusation, but a testament to Mr. Sly's deceit. Mr. Sly had confessed he'd stolen it from an old woman who lived on the edge of town. "My wishes," Jack murmured to himself, tracing the smooth wood of his violin. "The forest sprite truly gave me gifts beyond measure." He thought of Mr. Grabbit, his old master, and a small smile touched his lips. He no longer felt anger, only a quiet understanding that some people choose to live with greedy hearts. Jack had chosen a different path. He spent the rest of the afternoon searching, asking kindly, until he found the small, humble cottage of the old woman Mr. Sly had robbed. She was frail, her eyes filled with worry, when Jack gently explained what had happened and returned her bag of gold. Her face lit up like 1,000 tiny stars. "Bless you, kind boy," she exclaimed, tears of joy streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. "I thought I'd never see it again." Jack felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling far more precious than any gold. From that day forward, Jack used his gifts wisely and kindly. His magic blowgun helped travelers find their way through dense forests by pointing to the nearest safe path, or retrieved lost items from tricky spots. His magic violin brought joy and laughter to villagers, turning sad days into festivals of dance, always with a gentle touch. And his power to make no one refuse his requests. He used it to encourage good deeds, to inspire generosity, and to help those who truly needed a hand, never for selfish gain. Jack built himself a small cozy home on the outskirts of Market Town. He was no longer just a diligent servant. He was a friend to all, a whisper of magic in the everyday world. He knew that true magic wasn't just about wishes and spells, but about kindness, courage, and using one's gifts to make the world a little brighter. And so, Jack lived a long and happy life, his heart full of adventure, and his spirit forever free. A testament to the boy who found his fortune, not in gold, but in the power of a good heart and a little bit of magic. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to hear more lovely fairy tales.